that made me think to the second point, because I said this started when we were talking about the monotony of it, right?
Yeah.
The other mindset, which really isn't another mindset, I think it's the next step, right? Because you have to get going and to make any progress, you have to figure out just being consistent first, which is the element of discipline, where it's going to take a certain amount of time that you don't know.
Yes.
Maybe it's a month, maybe it's 6 months. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an unknown amount of time that you're going to have to really, really rely on, discipline and just showing up and putting your nose into the grindstone and doing it to allow yourself to organically find these new solutions. And from there, as you start organically finding those things that help you do it better, I think that's where you come into being creatively consistent.
Well,
And this is where I find myself at now, because obviously I love working out. I love challenging myself. I love trying new things. So that in and of itself has come more naturally to me just after a decade of being in fitness, right? But
you've had to get creative, right?
You've had to get creative. But I had a new client yesterday, a young client, who has just got certified to be a trainer, has getting ready to study exercise science, who wanted to work with a trainer just to learn more.
Yeah.
And what I found was that our session entailed much less of like a structured workout, because I didn't have to worry about him showing up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I knew he was gonna show up. He's gonna do everything he needs to do on his own,
right?
Because he's already in love with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so our session was much more of like a creative brainstorming session, where it's like, how can we figure out how to make these things work better for you,
right?
So that you feel more connected, so that you learn something new, so that you can take that and run with it.
Right.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, it's because you miss me in the gym. That's what's going on. Because we used to do this.
Oh, you're right.
And if I need a variation of a workout, you were always like, oh, hey, check out this one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because you, A, know I'm going to switch to it. B, I'm going to show up to do it. And C, might need those modifications. Yeah.
But like I think that creatively consistent or consistently creative in that path gives you so much power, because as soon as you've organically found that thing that you're like, I enjoy that.
Yes.
Right? You can apply it to all these little different areas. So that couple I was telling you about that gamified just their workouts. They found a mode of working out that took place in a game. Well, now it's circled back to the weightlifting, where, something they knew they would benefit from the most, they kind of didn't love.
Right.
But then they realized, hey, we can gamify this. We can compete with each other.
Yeah.
We can create our own game.
Yes.
With this.
Yes.
And then that boosts the consistency with it.
Yes.
Because you figured out how to enjoy it, and that has taken some creativity, but it also took a lot of discipline up front.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
so
I think it's a positive feedback loop. It's a way for discipline and consistency to become a positive feedback loop.
Right.
And I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about how we can make consistency that positive feedback loop, so you can keep taking evolutionary steps. And I think creativity might be that key, because
I like it.
Because we think about the things that mess up your consistency, or everybody's consistency: work, kids,
stress,
schedules, stress, like things popping up in life. And I think about what I've done personally over the years, and the stage that I'm at right now, where a lot of the things and my goals revolve around stuff like this: making more content, trying to build a bigger audience, help more people, and reach out to more people. And I came across, I'm a YouTube guy. I spend a lot of time on YouTube watching videos. It's my preferred streaming platform.
I feel like every text is about, well, yes, in the YouTube this, YouTube.
So, and I've known for a long time, pull back a little bit from a business perspective. I've known since I was a kid that you can make money on YouTube per the views.
Guys, we had a conversation.
About this.
I did not, and so I'm the boomer here. Which not really, but
if you didn't know,
yes.
Influencers make a lot of money on YouTube.
Right. And it turns out you could have done this for
there's businesses around
time.
it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's whole YouTube businesses. And so I'm not trying to get us sucked into a rabbit hole. I'm just saying that for a long time, I've known this could occur, and I haven't been consistent with the making of content to try to grow something bigger than me.
Right.
But I've had the desire.
Yeah.
I've had the want to do that.
So
and I haven't, and I'll have creativity.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll have these sparks where I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then the consistency lacks.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm realizing is that maybe the consistency needs to occur first, the discipline into doing something. And then as you do it, you'll figure it out. And so it's taken me more time to get that. But I look at the span of years that I haven't been doing it, where I've had some consistency here, had some consistency there, but I've never fully just stuck with it. Right? You have my sound effects. I don't know if they heard that, but that's the sound effect for consistency.
Elias started. He moved.
And so then the other week, I came across this channel, and it made me realize that I didn't have to do something in the way that I was thinking about for my own standards, how I needed to do it.
Oh, interesting.
And I won't go into the details on it because it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
But the point was that when I realized that, I was like, oh, I don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
I can do it like this. And so I gave it a shot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow, this is actually kind of fun. And it was a lot easier to stomach.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a lot easier to stomach from the whole creation process because it takes time.
Right.
Got a business to run.
Right.
Even though it might be a piece of the business, it's not going to move the needle forward greatly today or tomorrow. Right. It's going to take time for that to make an impact for my goals.
So that's where that consistently creative comes in, huh?
I think so, because otherwise I just would have been banging my head against the wall. I would have tried something and been like, wow, that was really hard. Like I didn't get rewarded immediately.
Right.
And then I would have got busy. I would have had other things come up. I would have had clients to take care of. I would have all these other things that matter more.
Right.
But then I always would have been left with that feeling, whether it was that day or next week or next month of like, man, I really still want to do this, but like I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Why do I keep failing at this?
Right.
And I think that's something that, maybe we haven't experienced as much in our fitness, but I think that's what people experience all the time in their fitness. It's like what my clients say is when they finally come to me, they're like, yeah, like I've done this over the last 5 years and I'm just like, I keep wanting it.
Yeah.
And I'll do it for a little bit and then I just won't get to where I want to be and then life will get in the way and it inhibits them. It's like they take a step and then they fall back down. Then they take a step and they fall back down. They take a step and they fall back down. And that is really demotivating.
Yeah.
Versus like taking that step, even if they're not, taking that next step immediately, they're at least staying there and then can take the next step.
Yeah.
Can take the next step.
And I bet that is definitely what one girlfriend's saying to the other girlfriend. You know what I mean? She was being able to Chandler was saying to Jacqueline, just clarification here, that, she did that consistency and then she found that creative way of enjoying it. And so she was trying to, I think, articulate that now that we're, talking about it, like, oh, this is what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. Even though none of us were actually saying those words, that she was trying to motivate Jacqueline. Because she even said, hey, I have Peloton. I'll let you use my login. Like, you can do any of the other workouts, whatever you want. And Jacqueline's like, oh, I use my mom's Beach Body on Demand or whatever, and I do those videos. It's just more about, I'm just not consistent. Like, I'll do it for a couple weeks and then I'll stop. And that might, and now I'm going to go back and I'll be like, hey, actually, maybe you should give that a try. Like, maybe that's the thing that you just need to change. Maybe you need to get creative with it. It might be the thing that makes you stick to it for an extra week or consistently, you know, no matter what. And so I love that you've articulated, wrapping back around of that conversation that we were all having this morning, where no real like specific words were being used to say, hey, this might be the thing you need.
Right,
You know?
right. And that I think that's that swing and balance. So we've talked before about, you know, the person that needs to like nose to the grindstone, just keep doing what you're doing, versus the person who needs to make the overhaul.
Yes.
And they're different places.
Right.
I think it's the same thing, right? Like, if you're just starting, you can still have that creative spark, but as soon as you have that creative spark, as soon as that thing hits where you're like, gut feeling, maybe I should do this.
Yes.
Stop thinking about it.
Do it.
Just stop thinking about it and be disciplined with doing it for as long as you possibly can. The longer, the better.
Absolutely.
Even, right? Most of the time, we don't do it long enough.
Right.
Most of the time, it's like a week, max, like maybe a month. But if you're like, you know what? I've had enough. Yeah. I've had this feeling that I need to get a trainer. Yeah. I've had this feeling, somebody's been telling me I need to get a massage. I haven't been doing it. And I think I need to do it. And saying, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it every week.
I'm going to be consistent.
I'm going to be consistent with it, no matter what. And just detach from the outcome of it.
Yeah.
And that is that, okay, we had that slight bit of creativity. Now we need to embrace the monotony. We need to move into just grinding for a little while, because if you don't do it, you're never going to actually get the full force of that creativity. You're never going to reach the potential of that creativity.
Right.
If you don't crank up the discipline, you crank up the monotony.
But it's got to be a catalyst for you.
You might have it as a catalyst, and that's fine. But as soon as you've had that gut feeling, it means it's meaningful.
Yeah.
Like something, you don't need to understand all of it. You don't need to understand science. If you want to dive into it, if you want to study it, absolutely, all that stuff is bonus, I think.
Right. I just love that you said, we got to pause here. I just love that you said, if you have that gut instinct, that is something meaningful, guys. Just think about that. If you have that gut instinct to do something and it's consistently like popping into your life, it's a meaningful thing.
It's trying to create consistency.
I mean, like, woo!
I think about these things.
That's conviction right there. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I should be listening to this episode.
I just like, it makes sense, because if it's consistently popping up in my mind for whatever reason, then it means that it needs to take place in my life somehow.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I have to like change everything about my life. Right. It just means I need to make a few phone calls to some people I've been thinking about, right?
Right.
That I haven't talked to in a while. Maybe I need to make a point to talking to them more frequently, right?
Yeah.
But it's consistently coming up because it's trying to manifest its consistency in my life.
Yeah.
And so if you find that like you have that gut feeling, you need to crank up the monotony in that. And that doesn't sound fun. It's not a sexy way to say it. You know?
I mean, you ruined the whole episode by just letting us know and reminding us of hard work that we're about to have to put in. Who doesn't love just the creative part? Like,
well, that's the tough part, right? Is because it's so easy to be creative if you have a bunch of ideas. Like,
yeah.
That is the fun part.
Yeah.
And it's fun to dream. It's fun to do all those things, but nothing will ever come to fruition if you don't, like you said earlier, take action on it and then be willing to take that action over and over and over again without needing to see the fruits of that action.
Not having to see that hill. Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's the same. A fruit tree is another perfect example of something that like you have to have the seed.
Yep.
Put it in the ground and then watch it and wait. And baby it, and every day give it a little bit of water. Make sure it's got plenty of sun.
Yeah.
Making sure finally when you get that little sprout out of the soil, you're like, oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Yes.
We ain't anywhere close to fruit yet.
No.
We got years.
Not only that, you gotta protect it from other, all the outside.
All the thing is trying to pull the life away from it. Right? So why wouldn't that exist also in us?
Yeah.
That we have to give it that amount of time. And so maybe we think about this type of person, because as I was saying that, I was thinking maybe the person that has so much going on in their life, so much monotony, that they don't have any time for creativity.
Right.
Right? Maybe they got 3 kids, maybe they own a business. I think about my clients who've had a hard time because they had so much other stuff. And the only reason that they wake up to their health is because the doctor has finally said, hey, you have to make a change.
Right.
And I think for you and me both, one of the reasons we make these are to help people not have to do that.
Absolutely.
You don't want to wake up at 50, 45, 50, 55 years old and be like, shit.
Yeah.
You know, I got to make a change or I'm not going to make it to 65.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's easy for people in their 30s and early 40s, especially, to get some busiest time of your life.
Right.
You have so much going on. And so you're just trying to make it by every day.
Right. And you lose some of that creativity that way.
Well, you're fully stuck in the monotony of other stuff and not yourself.
Yeah.
And so how would you break that? Like, how would you get a person, because we've talked about like fitness being the one selfish thing that you actually should put on. I don't know if, did you listen to the one with Stuart Walker? We had Stuart on. That was one of the things that he talked about that he discovered after suffering from depression and a person that was around fitness for a long time. And he's got 3 awesome kids, but you know, 2 of them have severe autism. That's a big thing to have to live with. Yeah. You know, in your life, that's a major responsibility, and can, you know, I'm definitely empathize with his feelings of, you know, I'm sure he had so many feelings of helplessness through his depression. So how he overcame that was the conclusion of recognizing that, like, he had to put himself first physically,
right,
so that he could be the strongest father for his family and for his kids.
Right.
And so do you have any idea, like, how you would have somebody break that monotony of all the other stuff?
It's very interesting that you asked me this question, because I would definitely be that person that falls into this category, guys, of and he knows why he's asking. I'm that person that definitely could live that rigid monotony life. I would also just say, you know, backstory here, I grew up in a very military household, and so some of those things are just innately ingrained in me. And so, good question. For me, and maybe for a lot of people, unless you are not actively trying to be aware of this monotony that you've put yourself in, or into the space of creativity, because I would definitely say I'm more of an analytical, like, realist kind of mindset. I'm not that creative type sometimes. So if you're not actively seeking that or being aware of your monotony and just all the things, a lot of times it's going to be moments of big change, whether you want them or not. This being mine, guys, where it really has forced me to have to look at some of these monotonous things that I do, and also really discover that some of them don't serve me anymore. And that's going to just be part of life in general, but definitely in health, wellness, and fitness sometimes. Eventually something doesn't necessarily serve you, but you may still be in that monotonous habit of keeping it.
Yeah.
You know, and if guys, go listen to the buckets, the gratitude buckets, or the fuck buckets, however you want to call it.
Fuck buckets, 2024, baby.
There you go. Well, if you listen to that, you know that you're only going to have so many buckets, and if my buckets are overloaded, and I probably don't even need a couple of these buckets, and I wasn't using any kind of awareness, and I was just living in that monotony, and I wasn't even applying any kind of creativity to make some fluid changes for growth. Moments like this, these big things, have made me have to sit with myself, right, and go, oh, dude, like, I'm stressed because I'm carrying 3 buckets I don't need.
Yeah.
I'm being monotonous with things that are not progressing my health, wellness, and fitness. And more importantly, if our goal is to benefit our future self and my future self now has to look different for a little human being, I have to be flexible. I have to be creative. I have to start thinking, who is Ariel going to be now? You know, who is she now? What she's got to do daily to make those changes, and then who's she going to be in the future for her son?
Yeah.
And I love talking about myself in third person. People think it's weird, guys. It's okay. But I I love that you asked me that question, put me on the spot there, because it is something that I've been thinking about. And so I would really encourage people to kind of look at that and see, oh my goodness, am I carrying some buckets? Am I being monotonous with some things that I otherwise should have already gotten rid of and moved on from?
Yeah, because monotony, I think we're discovering here that monotony can be a really good thing in certain areas and a really bad thing in other areas, where it can keep you tunnel vision.
Yes.
And that in and of itself can be a great thing if you're tunnel visioned on a priority.
Right.
It can be a bad thing if you're tunnel visioned on something because it's just something you've always done.
Right. And I think that comes from, in my case, being in seasoned. We wouldn't say that somebody in the very beginning needs to be too worried about that, but as you are consistent with things, you might lose that creative mindset. You might take a back seat and just become monotonous after 10 years of doing something.
I think part of that may also just be like getting older, having more responsibilities.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like you.
All my buckets, all my stress, all my things.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't need a couple of them. And offloading them has actually allowed me to go, oh, here's my buckets for him. You know what I mean? Whereas I was like, where do I put these buckets?
Yeah.
Like, he has to have his own buckets. I don't know what, you know what I mean? I was like,
How am I going to carry all this?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, man, I am not Mulan. I can't put the buckets on my back, and, you know, I can't do that. And so I think it's great that you asked me that.
Well,
it's a beautiful
I think
thing.
you answered that in a perfect way because, and I think we talked about this before, is that, you know, change is usually scary, especially really big change.
Right.
And if we can't learn how to embrace change, when change happens to us inevitably, it's even scarier because it's so unknown.
Yes.
And I think that's what people are so anxious about nowadays, is because we want everything to be sunshine and rainbows and awesome all the time, and life isn't like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother topic. But instead of thinking about it with that anxious mindset of saying, like, oh my God, like, I have this change that's coming no matter what, and I have no control over it.
Yes.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Instead of saying, you know, or maybe for a moment you felt that, like, where am I going to put these buckets?
Yeah.
But instead of just saying stuck there and frantic and trying to figure out how to place all these buckets in a way that, you know, it might look good on paper,
right,
or it might seem doable on paper, but inevitably would have failed or been so overwhelming that it might have broken you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You looked at it as an opportunity to say, I'm in the next evolutionary step here. I need to shed these things.
Yes.
I need to get rid of these things. And that is an opportunistic mindset of saying, you know, it's not that I have to sacrifice these things. It's I have this opportunity to add all this wonderful new things.
Yeah. And just that some of them didn't serve me anymore anyways. In the beginning, I was overwhelmed thinking that they still did. And, you know, when you take a look at it and you're like, oh, but this doesn't correlate with who my future self is even going to be anymore, right? Or this daily thing that I'm doing is only adding busyness to my day. It's not purposeful. It's not intentional. It's not necessary. It doesn't serve me. And again,
It just feels like you're doing something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think again, for me, I had to have a moment of big change. But I would really encourage people not to wait till that moment. I would encourage you to kind of spend time where you evaluate yourself, even if it's every couple of months, going, okay, am I falling into that trap of that monotony? Am I that person that needs to get a little more creative? Do I need to shed some of my buckets? Do I need to pick up some new buckets, and what that's going to look like moving forward?
Yeah. I'm the same way. I wouldn't say necessarily wait around, but I do my best work when my back's against the wall. like when I'm forced into big change.
Right.
And so I've learned for myself that I need to bring that on myself.
Yeah. You have to
I need to seek forcing change.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, I make small adjustments. I would say like on the weekly of like priority wise, like just like logistically. Yeah. I don't think that's the same thing as what we're talking about here. I think that, for big stuff,
right.
I if I find the idea and I'm really that convicted about this thing, at that point, I'm going to force the change to happen, and then we're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't always work out for me, right. But hey, like for me, I found that I have to force it to happen, because if I sit there and teeter and think about it more, right. And more and more and more and try to like squeeze it in, it's never enough. I'm never committed enough to the change, and inevitably I just go back to the comfortable self that I was.
Right.
And you fall back into those busy work, the things that, make you feel like, hey, I'm doing something, but you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe that's how people do it. Maybe that's how if they find themselves in the monotony of it, is like force yourself into making a big change. I don't know if there's a recommendation, right, of what we could say. I
think that's gonna look different for everybody.
Totally. But like health and fitness wise, like what could a big change be? Would that be like?
I mean, for some people,
doing something you've never done, right? Maybe.
Something you've never done, changing your environment completely, making that massive big change, forcing yourself to be uncomfortable,
changing your environment.
Changing your environment. We've had people. Brian Delaney is a good example. He literally had to.
That's a great podcast.
Great podcast. Go listen to him, guys, and his journey in cycling. But what did he do? He literally was an unhappy, depressed, married man that was like, I have to move states.
Yeah.
This man moved states. I mean, that's a big environmental change. He pushed himself up against the wall. He made those massive changes. And stay tuned for part 2, because he has big news.
We're going to get him back on.
And we're going to get him back on. And it's so, talk about the evolution of change. That was his big thing that he needed to do. And even after his injury, it's amazing what his story that he's continuing to get to share and tell. So
I think I like that a lot. I found in regards to changing your environment, that could be joining a gym, could be getting a coach, whether that's in a gym or to come to you, like the people in your environment as well.
Oof, yeah.
Like you could change the environment itself, so you could change the people.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of something I've done recently that I didn't even realize was happening, but now I am fruiting the enjoyment of it. And so the enjoyment, and I think I'm fruiting that reward so early just because I know that change is good for me in certain ways. It also helps that I just like physical activity.
Right.
But I've taken up pickleball. And so I've been,
I know you've taken up pickleball.
I've been playing with Brian.
I know.
But I've been a big Ultimate player since I was in high school. I fell in love with it, and for a long time that has been my cardio outlet. It's been my competitive outlet. It's been a huge piece of my life that I use for multiple different reasons, especially since I moved to Northwest Arkansas and didn't know as many people for that period of time. But I stuck with it, and it's not that I dislike it now.
Right.
I just found myself in a season where I haven't been utilizing it as much.
Right.
And it kind of sucks. But I also kind of don't really want to do it for right now. Whether it's hot outside, like it doesn't work great with my schedule. Right. And so there's these reasons that I'm sort of resisting it.
Yeah.
And part of that's just the season.
Yeah.
The actual, like, hot as hell.
Yes. Yeah, don't want to be outside in season.
And when we play, it just doesn't coincide with that. And so, for a while I hear about people playing pickleball, and I was kind of like, it's kind of goofy. It's like, is it really that intense? Like, is it really going to be that fun? And so finally I was like, screw it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get, and I ordered the paddles, and the way I did it actually was a client asked me to play, and I was like, sure, yeah, I'll go play with you. Now I have even more of a reason to push myself into this environmental change.
Right.
Of course, I love it. It's fun. It's awesome, right? And this is not a ad for pickleball. I'm just saying, like, I'm getting all this benefit from a new sport, a new game, a new competition, something that with new people themselves.
Yeah.
Also, like going from a heavy team sport to a more single person sport, or just maybe one other person.
Yeah.
I'm finding it really rewarding and really fun for reasons other than why I play Ultimate.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And that's taken just kind of forcing myself into that environmental shift.
Well, I think, like, you know, you continue to say that, like, because you know yourself well enough that you need to sometimes force change in yourself back up against the wall. I would say, you know, mine looked a little different because, once again, I had to have a big event happen in my life for me to stop focus on running. And that was the inability to run.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I invested even more energy into bodybuilding and how much I loved bodybuilding. You know, or I really actually found a love for, I know this sounds crazy, there are workout classes, guys. They are workout classes for pole dancing. And if you have upper body strength.
Are they workout classes there?
No, they are. They are. And if you have upper body strength and mobility, because I used to be a gymnast, I just excel at it naturally. I wasn't sure. I was a little hesitant. Not really my environment choice. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, because you are allowed to wear just kind of skimpy clothes in this environment, but also they serve a purpose. You need your skin on the pole. There's like a lot of reasons.
It's just a very vulnerable setting.
It really much is. And so I was a little worried, but then I took to it naturally, and I never really thought that I would enjoy something as much as I enjoyed running, but it fulfilled something in me, a physical activity that I could do, and made me feel confident and made me feel strong that I was able to do these things. Mm-hmm. And so again, I had to be placed in a position where I had to remove an activity from my life because of inability to do it. But I definitely would encourage people to be more aware and not wait till the moments like I've had to have in life. Sounds like I'm very stubborn at this point.
Well,
in that case, guys, I think we're wrapping. Yeah, I think we're wrapping up. You know, I think you've learned all you need to know today.
Well, you know, and I think because we started our first like official video episode, actually talking about our podcast and the steps that we needed to take, and we're kind of ending it thinking that, you know, how the environments change and change how you do certain things, and how that can affect your ability to be consistent. And hopefully for the better, right? So that you can continue to find those next little evolutionary steps so that you can continue to climb your mountain and actually make progress in the things that you want to make progress in, especially in regards to your health and wellness. And like, I think about it, and we've gone from, y'all haven't seen it, but recording in a little tiny conference room with a curtain up.
Yes.
Yes. You know, antagonistically trying to win over an argument with each other, to sitting in this really awesome lounge, just having a really good conversation about how we can all be better and do better and feel better in our lives. And, you know, I think that's, in and of itself, us being in here is a beautiful thing and a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. So go find your rewards, guys. Hopefully this podcast has helped you kind of sit with yourself, figure out the evolution of change and where your life has been, where it's at, and where it's headed.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.